So today, I mean, this was last week. We weren't here last week. Today, we're actually going to talk a lot about the hubris and humility. Certainly, the create your own luck. A ton of know yourself today too, and certainly some perseverance conversation as well.
Can you click?
I'm clicking.
There we go.
There we go.
Oh boy.
All right,
That's a big, it's a big image of us.
Massive pictures of us.
I know. Quick, skip the slide fast.
Trying.
All right, who are we? I believe Adrian is going to go first.
I'm going to go first. Okay, so hi, everybody. I'm Adrian. I'm a mechanical engineering graduate from 2000. That's right, 2000, a long time ago. You weren't born yet. Many of you weren't. I then went into automotive engineering right after undergrad. This is when you graduated from ME and like you had one job and it was going to automotive. It's like all you could do. It's what they told you as you were graduating. So I did that, and it was actually amazing. I loved it. It was for an engineering consulting firm. Traveled all over the world, got incredible experience, but at some point, I was like, man, I think I really want to start a business somehow, somewhere, you know. So then I went over to the Michigan Business School. It wasn't Ross at the time.
Wow, that's
again,
very old.
That's how long ago it was. So started there, did the evening program because that still existed then while I was working, and then while I was kind of figuring out, okay, what kind of company do we want to start? So the first one I started while I was in school was this company called Shepherd IS. Anybody use Magic Bus? The app a little bit? Yeah, okay. So
we're on North Campus. You got to use Magic
I mean,
Bus,
you
right?
know, I mean, it's still here, you know. So we actually spun the kind of original tech out of that into the first fleet management cloud-based solutions to monitor and manage taxis, limos, buses, transit fleets. Really cool little company, spun it out of the tech transfer office and built it into a nice little profitable outfit. From there, saw an opportunity to build something much bigger at a company that we founded kind of out of that called Sidecar, which was the first instant rideshare company. Had a wonderful experience, building that company in the Bay Area with some partners that we found out there. And then also, when I was still in town here, started a company called a loyalty-based system for quick service restaurants called Flock Tag, which Rishi actually invested in as an angel investor. And that's when we first got to be friends 10 plus years ago. Since then, I moved over to the investment side and ran a seed stage investment fund in Detroit for a couple of years. And then over the past 9+ years, I've been an MD at Mercury, which is we're an early stage, primarily software-driven B2B SaaS and marketplace company focused on seed Series A in Middle America, right? So sort of non-coastal investment fund. That's me.
And me, my name is Rishi Narayan. I graduated from College of Engineering in Chemical Engineering in 2003 and 2005. So I'm a lot younger than Adrian, just in case you're wondering.
It's obvious.
And similar to Adrian, like I was kind of bitten by the bug and wanted to start a business in college, but I went a little bit of a different path, and mine was very not untech. And so, kind of where my path has been is I founded a company with my friend and partner from growing up called Underground Printing. How many of you have heard of Underground Printing? All right, that's good. It's good. It's a good percentage. All right, well, it's good. It's going well. It's going well. I founded that in my dorm room in West Quad, so it's very much a dorm room.
What house in West Quad?
It was a Rumsey house.
Also Rumsey.
Where are you?
First
nice.
floor.
Fourth
Anybody
floor.
else?
Fourth floor. I was fourth floor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Anyway,
first floor is better.
So true kind of dorm room startup. Moved to a garage next to a broken down Chevy and some 2 golden retrievers that got hair and on all the t-shirts. So really kind of as bootstrap and as like textbook story, college dorm type of story as you can get. So We're going to talk a little bit today about the college startup, about starting a business while you're still in school, what to think about, and we both have experience with it, so that's what we're going to be focused on.
That's right. Like the kind of overall themes today. So think about, as you go through this, what are the kinds of companies you can start, as Rishi said, about or in school, but then from there, what kinds of companies are right for you? Is it more of a bootstrap kind of retail focus like his company, or is it more maybe tech, hardware, high barriers to entry that require funding, right, to be able to scale up, right? So that's the kind of back and forth that we'll go through today.
And Adrian and I, we come from different perspectives, but we've kind of dabbled in each side of what we do. While he primarily was in tech, he also co-founded a very kind of local bootstrap type company. And on the flip side, while I started kind of less tech, I started going into angel investing in companies like FlockTag, among others, and co-founding other companies as well. So, with that lens, it's kind of allowed me to, it's kind of just opened up the doors for entrepreneurship for me. I was not a B school student, maybe much like many of you. So for me, investing was B school. It was tuition that I hoped would pay off. And sometimes it did, and most of the time it didn't. And that's the lesson learned there. So
that's okay. That's angel investing.
That's investing in a nutshell.
One thing that we both should have put on here that we also both teach here at CFE. So I teach an intro to venture capital class in the winter semester. And are you teaching right now?
Yeah, I teach e-commerce entrepreneurship. If anyone has taken my class in here? Oh, only a couple. I know Elise has, but
more people should take his class.
Yeah. Next semester, Mondays, 4 to 6.
Awesome.
Okay, so let's move on to actually what we want to talk about here, which is ultimately, this is the question. And I think that Adrian and I, we talk a lot about the realities of a startup, the realities of entrepreneurship. And most of us come in, I think, with just like, we've seen Shark Tank, we've seen The Social Network, we've heard all the amazing stories about unicorns and we've all these movies that are out there and everything that's in the ethos, and we want to go big. Like, we want to be a billion-dollar company. But the reality is, and I'm sure you all know this, but I'm just going to say it again, is that 95% of the businesses out there are businesses that make under $5 million, under $10 million, right? That's what our world is built of. And that is not only perfectly okay, it's absolutely necessary for our society and our economy, right? So we come here not to tell you about how, oh, wow, look at how well this is doing or that is doing. This is how we got to this size. Actually, we're going to come around it from the other side, which is like, let's just look at what the goal is. And the goal can be to go unicorn, but the goal could be to make a couple $1,000s to pay for a trip. That's still entrepreneurship. So we want you to start thinking about how you frame the goal for your startup. And again, that does not have to be the thing that you sell for millions of dollars.
And by the way, maybe the goal is just to kind of learn the ropes. Maybe it's okay. Again, we have to embrace, failure and embrace experience, right? It's fine if you go big and it didn't work out. Right? We've all had, anybody that's tried a few times, myself included, have had that, right? But just figure out, this is kind of back to knowing yourself. What kind of investment do you have and you want to have in your time? It's a lot easier to go down the path of more bootstrap and sort of side gig if, your time commitment's going to be on the lighter side. Totally fine. Whereas if you want to go kind of, hey, I want to go and I want to raise money and I want to go after something big, you really can't do that part-time. You have to go all in, right? Because certainly your investors are going to expect you go and they won't put money in otherwise, right? And so it's just like, what is your startup goal? And that can change, by the way.
Yeah, right? I was about to say,
my
speaking
startup
of time.
goal when I first got to Ross or the business school, I didn't even know what venture capital was, literally. I just was like, hey, let's go start some companies. I had no idea. And so I went in thinking, well, maybe I'll try to start a consulting company, which I did. And then maybe I'll just start, something else, maybe some sort of automotive supplier. I didn't know what it was being. And then I learned about this interesting thing called venture capital.
That's right. I mean, the goal can change like any progression. You don't go in, if you play a sport, you have set goals as you develop with that sport. As you go through your educational career, you might have set goals as you progress through that career, as you learn more. Entrepreneurship is no different. If your goal that you set is to go huge, go public, and you've not ever started a company before, that's a tough reach. That could be a personal end goal, but that can be different than your startup goal, and that will change startup to startup and over time. So again, we want you to think about that the goal is not the end goal, the goal is a progression, and what is it for you at that stage, and that's where it starts. So Adrian and I we're actually starting on the sides that we want to talk about. Look at that, we planned it. Yeah. Which is, we're gonna come at it from two different vantage points. One is the side gig, the side hustle, which by definition, if you're starting a company in college, we're up here to tell you that likely we're going to advocate that your schooling comes first, your education comes first, and your company comes second, or at least they're equivalent, maybe equivalent, right? We're both lecturers for the College of Engineering, and so that is our official stance. But that comes with what I call, if you've taken my class, I call these pillars of a side gig, pillars of a side hustle. A side hustle cannot be all things. On the flip, Adrian is going to talk about what happens when you go all in. There's different characteristics of that business. It's very important that you tie these things together because your success, your mental well-being, the stress level that you achieve or try to prevent is going to be associated with how realistic your startup is.
That's right. There is a direct correlation, by the way, from the left side of the screen to this right side of the screen in stress level, right? Lower, way higher up here, right? Because in many cases, you're hiring teams, you're oftentimes raising money, right? And with that comes a huge amount of responsibility. Whereas if you're on that side, you just say, hey, I'm just going to do something on the side, not have any employees, just so we see what I can sell, either e-com or maybe a service, maybe I'll do my own consulting, whatever it might be, it's a lot lower. So just again, what's right for you? So how do you know to go all in kind of versus side gig? Let's just go through what we kind of think of as all in. High barriers to entry. These are the kinds of companies that I see every day that are pitching me for venture capital. High barriers to entry, meaning that it's harder to tackle whatever market opportunity there might be, whether through technology, IP, science, whatever that looks like, that usually is some kind of form of it. Capital required, usually, not always. There's a number of companies that are in tech that have certainly been bootstrapped and been able to build on revenue. Certainly happens, but a lot of the time it requires capital to scale at the rate that you want to scale, or it needs to scale. Lastly is total addressable market, right? That just means how big is this thing? Again, that's another thing that correlates. Usually larger over here, usually smaller over here. Now one thing for anybody that has taken my class before, one thing I'll say in the very first class is the vast majority of companies should not take venture capital. It is not right. This is alluding to what Rishi mentioned earlier. Venture capital has been celebrated over the past 20 years as oh my God, I raised all this money. It doesn't matter that you raised money if you don't spend it well and actually grow and build a profitable business in the end, right? That's what value is. Look at what the stock market is doing right now and how it values unprofitable companies. So, again, know what the end goal should be for you, for your company, and for your investors.
I'll flip over to the other side. So Adrian teaches a class in VC and how to be a VC and how to approach VCs. He teaches you how to go all in. The class that I teach, e-commerce entrepreneurship, yes, you can go big, but it's the perfect platform to start a side gig, start a side hustle. And these pillars of a side hustle, when you think about what is that, we mentioned stress level goes up. That doesn't mean you don't have associated stress with your main gig, which for all of you is school, right? And that's the balance. But when you're dealing with a side gig, you want to be solving a well-known problem. You don't want to be educating your consumer on why it is they need to solve the problem or explaining what it is you have to do. It's oftentimes something that everybody knows, and you're just attacking it in a certain way, right? You want to put your resources there, not in the education. It's easy to maintain and manage. Now, that seems pretty obvious, but as soon as you hire a person, that becomes hard. As soon as you take money, you have an onus to your investors. As soon as you have 1,000 customers or 10,000 customers, it gets hard to maintain and manage. I've talked to some of you about this as recently as a few minutes ago, and this is the reality of growing your business. So how do you balance that? You can still run a business. You can still do that while you're in school, and you can still strengthen your entrepreneurial muscles, but you have to design it well. The last one is it's profitable from day one, or at least educational and manageable from day one. Like, you could go into it knowing that you might not make money, but you're going to learn a lot, and that is okay. But you are likely not going to go into it saying, I just have to acquire all these users no matter what it costs, and then I'm going to achieve scale and profitability at user 100,000. You need to show the unit economics from day one from your idea stage, which is not always the case on the VC world, although it's changing quite a bit as of right now. So
recently, it certainly has.
It sure has. So be profitable from day one might be actually on both sides of the slide these days.
We talk a lot more about break even now than we have in the past 15 years. That's for sure in the early stage venture capital world. Here's the other thing, I just to kind of layer in this risk. What is your risk tolerance? One of the kind of the notes up there on the first two slides is know yourself. You need to understand what your risk tolerance is if you're going to start a company, right? It's really important for you to understand that as sort of well and intrinsically as you possibly can. Because sometimes we can lie to ourselves and we can say, you know what, I am super I'm warm to risk. I'm a super big risk taker when it comes to business and all. And you get into it, and then you're embedded into it. You're like, holy shit, this is uncomfortable. I can't do this, right?
Are we allowed to swear now? Is that what you're saying?
I haven't passed EHours.
Oh, yeah, Christine just gave us a thumbs up. We're good.
Kurt said it's okay. And so, hi, Christine. Yeah. I didn't see you there. Hi. She is my boss there.
Yeah, I know our boss is up there watching us, by the way.
So it's really, really important. And again, it's actually particularly hard to do that when you're in school because you don't have the business experience to even kind of figure that out. But do your best to sort of understand that about yourself.
I think Adrian touched on this point. Risk taking. And those of you that have been in my class have heard me say this. Entrepreneurship is not about being a great risk taker or someone who's super comfortable with taking risks. It's about risk assessment. It doesn't matter what your tolerance is. It just matters that are you getting better at assessing risk. So the reality is just being a great risk taker or being super risky has nothing to do with your success as an entrepreneur. The other thing I want to mention, being on this side of the stage and this side of the slide, is because stress level and growth goes from this side to this side doesn't equate to legitimacy of your business. The reality is business, 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 business. Entrepreneurship, entrepreneurship, entrepreneurship. This is all entrepreneurship. This is all business. These are all startups. And oftentimes we feel like this over here, this side gig is less legit or not real. And this is something I struggled with when I was a student. When people ask me what I did, I'd be like, I'm a grad student and I do this thing on the side. And frankly, I look back on it and I regret it because actually I spent most of my time unofficially on the business, and I should have. It was a business, and it was just a side hustle. It does not make a difference either way. So remove that from your thought process. It's something to be proud of. It's something to take ownership of, and it has great educational value. Embrace that, and you'll go far with it.
And it's the foundation of the economy.
I think we've harped on that enough.
Yeah. Okay. So, guys, this is something that we kind of came up with relatively recently. When you're thinking about that business idea, that startup idea, whether it is in the kind of lifestyle business side hustle or if it's in like the all-in kind of tech high investment. No matter what, if you're doing it right, you're actually going out, you're talking to people about it, you're getting feedback, right? The unfortunate thing, especially if you're in school, is that you don't necessarily have the network built in to help you evaluate if that's actually a credible idea that you should spend time on. The most valuable asset you have is your time, not your money, it's your time, right? And so when you go through this and you think about how do I go about and figure out if this is something, real or not, you got to think about who are these people that I'm getting feedback from. Your mom is always going to tell you you're amazing, right? Your dad is going to be like, that's a great idea, buddy, right? Or he's going to be like, or maybe, like my dad, he'd be like, that's the worst idea in the world, right? Trouble is, with my dad, he's a lawyer. He didn't know what he's talking about, right? So the point of this is like, you're going to get all kinds of yeses from people. That's amazing. Go for it. What a fantastic idea, without a ton of credibility. You're going to get a ton of no's. That's stupid. It's a waste of time. How could you possibly tackle that? What do you know about, cybersecurity? What do you know about building a retail shop, a custom T-shirt retail shop?
It was nothing, if you're wondering.
Yeah, it was, time. But he did. He learned. But those no's, in many cases, those no's are useless. They're garbage because they have no experience and they have no knowledge of what you might be tackling. Now, granted, the more in the left side of that previous slide of like a given thing that people know about, like whether it's retail, it's probably easier, I'd argue, to get like more credible no's and yeses in that. I can tell you firsthand, it's a lot harder to get credible yeses and no's in the kind of all-in, higher barrier to entry, kind of more esoteric industries, sectors, whatever. So how do you do it? You have to work your network. You have to work the network within this university to figure out who is someone who actually has experience in the sector that I'm going after. This is one of the big things I learned when I was in business school, is I got a bunch of yeses and nos, all these ideas I had, and I was like, oh, I guess I won't do that. I didn't pursue 2 or 3 ideas that I should have because I got all these no's from people I thought, well, he's a professor here. He probably knows what he's talking about, right? But did he? I don't think he did, actually. And I didn't do enough to figure out, okay, is this, in this Venn diagram we have, is it in that narrow section of people of that kind of the truth in between, right? So this is just as you guys develop your ideas, and again, I think this is more apt and more relevant to the all-in kind of theme. Figure out as best you can who are the people that have the truth in between.
I'll just go off on a tangent here because you were talking about network. We're in school and we're involved in a lot, and I think that just to speak to the entrepreneurial ecosystem that's here in Ann Arbor and at the University of Michigan, I think a lot of people think that they're going, they're taking part in clubs and doing different things in the ecosystem to build their network, to find a co-founder or to start a business. And the reality is actually what you're trying to do is talk entrepreneurship, work through ideas, and learn about how to evaluate yeses and nos, and how to learn about evaluating ideas, flexing that muscle around people that want to have those conversations with you and have other experiences to give to you. If you go into being involved with that mindset, you will get so much out of it. If you go into it trying to find a co-founder, you're likely going to be analyzing skill sets and sizing people up. That usually falls apart. And most foundations, all foundations are built upon trust. Trust takes some time and experience, and that's what you're trying to develop. So just as an aside, because we were talking about building your network, learning about the yeses and the nos, well, you have an awesome opportunity right now, and getting involved in the CFE ecosystem or in the greater entrepreneurial ecosystem is about developing that. Okay, so we wanted to talk a little bit about what types of businesses, what types of companies are best to start. For a long time, there was a great focus, a social focus on tech. And actually, rightly so at this juncture, the stock market is propped up by tech companies where it used to be propped up by manufacturing companies, right? So tech has a major focus in our society these days, but it is not the only business, and actually it has its fair share of problems these days, right? So when we talk about what's the best type of company for you to start, there's lots of different verticals, and we come from different experiences, different backgrounds. We thought we'd touch on that a little bit. So one of the things that I think when I look at this, we talk about is what is your goal? Because the reality is it starts there. If it is a side hustle, if you're and you don't know how to code, if you want to start an app or a tech company and you're going to have to hire a bunch of people, that's going to be tough, right? That's your skill set. So where are your resources? Where's your skill set? And what's your end goal? On the flip side, if you're a CE major and you just rip off apps in your sleep, then that's great. That's a perfect starting point. For me, when I started, I was just enamored with entrepreneurship, and it didn't matter. I was looking for something. And what fell into my lap, so to speak, actually hit my car, I guess is a better analogy for me, was a person I met that used to have a t-shirt company, and I learned about it from there. Felt that I had the resources and network and skill set, and went from there. And that's how I went down that path. And it was a perfect side hustle for me while I was in school. And that's where it came from. One thing I will note that we didn't touch on before, which I wish we had, was that your first company is 99 times out of 100, 9,999 times out of 1,000, is not going to be your last. Your first company is probably going to fail.
Most likely.
It's where you're going to learn your lessons. And that is okay. And I oftentimes, when I tell my story, I'm a fluke. I'm lucky. Because I ended up doing the thing I started all those years ago. I'm still doing it now, but that's not reality. And I just want to call that out. So here's the reality of this situation. It was a side hustle. And that was what worked for me while I was in school. But I didn't have the skill set of coding. I didn't have the skill set in the tech and the hardware ecosystem. On the flip side, what would you say led you into Shepherd?
So I also, as a mechanical engineer, I couldn't code either. But I was also very passionate about starting my own companies, and so my path was like I knew I wanted to start a software company because it's a lot cheaper to build that than like a heavy hardware company, and so given that, I knew that I had to go and recruit somebody who could handle the tech side, handle the writing of code, and be a strong enough architect to be able to do it and then find a team. And so I worked my network here in Ann Arbor through school, through the venture funds, and actually through the guy who was the original CFE director, a guy named Doug Neal, who now runs eLab Ventures. And he connected me with one of the master's students here on campus who was working on Magic Bus. And so he was working on that. I had no like vision around, I want to build a fleet management company, right? I just wanted to start a company, much like Rishi. And so I was like, okay, you're doing something interesting in Magic Bus. Maybe we could sort of spin that out into something and spin it through the tech transfer office, and maybe it turns into something that's actually credible. And over that kind of iterative approach, we found that it started to make sense, both from a founder connection, and from an ability to say, okay, hey, the market seems to want this. Michigan right out of the gate said, hey, we're going to pay you $70,000 a year for use of your system. Okay, that's a good market signal, right?
So one of the things that I think about when we ask this question is, a lot of times you'll hear like, oh, you have to love what you do. You have to be so passionate about what you do. And I think that that's true, but I think it's in the context of, If you spent a lot of time, 80, 100 hours a week on this subject, and then it went away, would you look back on it as a waste of time, or would you be glad you did it? Because that's a lesson, that's learning. Were you excited to have learned about that area, that industry? Was it worth it if you weren't going to get a single dollar or a single kudos out of it? That is the passion. That's all it is. It's not like, oh, I loved it all my life, or I dream and breathe and sleep it. It is it worthwhile and valuable to the point where if it never materialized in anything, it was worthwhile for you?
Right.
And so that could be a hardware company and you have no experience in there, but you know that if I spent every waking hour on it and it never went to anything, it would be all worth it. And I think if you can frame it that way, that will help decide. But if it's something where you're like, well, I don't like it, but I think it makes a lot of money, then it's likely not going to be there because you're likely going to be in it for 10 to 15 years or more.
Right. And look, I mean, I didn't love my,
You didn't love fleet management?
I
Is that what you're
didn't
saying?
love fleet management, but you know what I did love? Having the ability to be the CEO and founder of a company that I could build a team around. Have the ability to go and kind of work on my sales, which I didn't do any of before. And I love having full flexibility and full ownership and control of, my professional life. Like, I'm a little bit of a control freak, and that was pretty good for me, right? So that was something that I did love, even though I wouldn't say that I loved, fleet management.
What resources do you have to start a company? How do you best leverage them? That lends itself to what we were talking about before, right? What resources do you have? And resources isn't just what you know. It's what you're interested in. It's where your background comes from. Maybe you have a family history in an area or industry. Maybe you have a skill set that came about. Those are all there, and you need to look at all your options.
It's also not static, right? You have to continue to build network and resource while you're in school if you have a passion for this world. If you have a passion for starting companies, want to start a company, want to join a startup, it's a dynamic thing, right? You have to continue to meet new people, explore new opportunities, try new ideas, right? It's not just something that just stays.
This I'm going to kick over to our expert. Do you need to raise money to be successful? Do you need to raise money?
I think
Adrian?
we know the answer, right? We already talked about that. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You can be in many companies. Most companies are very successful by most measures of success without raising money.
This is like propagated by the media, actually, because when you read an article, a lot of times, especially for tech companies, it says this company raised so much money. That's the end of the article. That's the story, but that's not a story. Right? The reality is that's just a stepping stone to the end goal. And we have now propped that up as wow, you raised this much money, you must be doing well. And that actually it's a gamble, it's a guess upon investors. So, every time you read one of those stories and it's it's trying to impress upon you how awesome this company is doing because they raised X amount in their Series X, just look at it and think to yourself, that's a piece of information. It means nothing in terms of how I evaluate that company.
Yeah, agreed.
Was there a common theme? Yeah, we don't have enough time to talk about all the common themes. But one thing I'm going to just talk about Adrian a little bit is that I want to give him a lot of credit because he started his company while he was in school. But what he didn't tell you was, or I didn't hear it was an evening MBA program. So not only was he trying to figure out how to do his company, try to start a company, and did start a company, he was getting his degree and he was working. And the reality is he was hedging his bets. He had 2 side gigs along the way, even though he was trying to go all in. So he was biting off quite a bit. That's very, very impressive. And
stupid.
You can give me the money later. And that is actually a testament to him prioritizing, evaluating risk, seeing where it was going to go, taking his time along the way, even though he knew he was going to go all in on it. And that's how we got to that point. And that's the opportunity that all of you have right now, is that you can push this for the next 4 or 5 years. It's why I got my master's. Sorry, college engineering. I just didn't know if this was going to be the thing, and so I applied to grad school and kept going. And if it didn't work out, then at least I had the master's. Am I supposed to be admitting this on stage? I don't know. But
yes, it's okay.
the truth. And of course, I look back on it now, and there's so much I got out of getting both degrees and so much that I use now, and that is for sure. But it allowed me time to explore lots of different things. And that is what you all are in school for, to learn and to explore lots of different opportunities.
I mean, look, the other common thing that with Rishi and his company, like, because it started this kind of organic process, right? It was like T-shirts out of his dorm room, and it kind of grew and grew and grew. He always thought about it in a way of like kind of unit economics, right? So I'm not gonna do something that's not profitable. It's a very healthy way to think about a business, and it's not as common as it should be right now, which is why capital markets are changing pretty drastically.
It does limit your growth rate, however. So
It does.
There are companies that started in my industry at the same time as me that are much bigger than us. It took me a long time to separate the way that I equated size with value or size with success. Not the same. I now equate it with sustainability, longevity. Do you exist for long periods of time? So the best thing I can say is that 2 decades later, we're still around. We always say we haven't killed it yet.
But to that point, what if you had raised money back in, I don't know, 2005, 2007, when some of these other guys, would you still be around? Would it look different? Would it look the same?
I mean, I think we would have had outside influences on what we needed to do, goals we needed to achieve. And the way that we would have done those things would have to scale quicker, and that would have either sunk us or exploded us, right? And I don't know. A lot of that's timing and luck, you know? As you know, in your case, right, we were talking about if Sidecar had better timing, what could it have been?
Right. You know, it is not a publicly traded company like Lyft and Uber, and so given different timing, maybe a different couple decisions here or there, and it might have been that, but you know, it wasn't.
I mean, there was a time back in that time. You can go back and look up articles. There were 3 companies in the ride share economy conversation. It was Uber, Lyft, and Sidecar. Those were the 3 companies everyone was talking about. And now it's Uber and Lyft. But, you know, I think Joseph Gordon-Levitt would have portrayed you really well in the movie. So we got a few more minutes. That's it. Okay, we have enough.
Yeah, one thing that I want to just go back to real quick, and then we can get to questions. I should have talked about it at one of the previous slides. When you guys are thinking about your companies, just so you know from my frame, I think about, people talk about product market fit, which is certainly important from a repeatability perspective, right? But what I look at too is founder market fit, right? Do you have a unique insight? Do you have a unique set of experiences to be able to tackle a given market opportunity, industry sector, TAM, whatever it might be, right? So when you think about the companies you're building, do you have something unique that other people do? Do you have founder market fit? And if you do, that should give you more confidence to say, I'm going to go for it. If you don't, then you think about hey, maybe there's some other areas, other companies, other industries that I should be targeting.
I mean, that's the number one lesson learned for me as an investor, and I'm sure Adrian will agree. I didn't even check with him on this, but is that you always bet on the jockey and not the horse. Because the jockey will come through. The founder will come through. If it's not that time, it'll be down the line. But you can never take an amazing idea that is not being run by the right person and make it happen. I learned this the hard way, and I'm sure you have too. And so that for all of us that want to be in this world is a blessing, right? Because it's about you. Even if it's not the right idea at not the right time, it will be at some point. It just might take some time.
That's right. You get there. Okay.
All right. We got 5 minutes for questions. I was supposed to be more. Sorry about that. We can talk a lot. Any questions out in the audience? Yeah. Will you say your name?
Yeah. Hey, guys. My name is Ron. First off, nice to meet you. Thank you for coming out to talk to us. Just to go back a little bit, you were mentioning you had some other ideas real quick about what you wanted to do or would have done. Would you mind sharing what those ideas are?
Sure. The first one that came to mind. This is 2000. This would be 2007, roughly 2006, 2007. We had this. My partner and I had this idea. A buddy of mine that I was in MBA school with of being a completely basically an investment advisor management tool. So think of like what if you use Charles Schwab or any of those kind of larger companies having a management tool that is there for the entire, like all assets, like insurance, equity securities, annuities, like everything that an advisor could use to allow to kind of offer to their clients and manage for their clients. We had this idea that, hey, what if we built this entire kind of platform there? Like that actually exists now. A whole bunch of companies have built that thing. Actually, one of my companies have built it. But at the time, I talked to a professor, still a friend, and he's like, "You could never build that. Like, what do you know about investment management? Like, you guys are morons." So I was like, and look, to be clear, like he might have been right at the time, right? He might have said, he basically was saying, "You guys don't have founder market fit." He was right.
Or founder market fit.
Right? That's why I said founder market fit. I don't think I think he's probably right about that. That said, I think it was a good enough thought that it probably was worth doing more than us just kind of riffing on it for a bit.
Probably one time for one more question. And we're hanging out, so and we'll be in discussion, or at least I will.
Hello.
Hi. Tell us your name.
I'm Alan. I did an interview with you. Remember me and Hui?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice to see you.
So I have a question. So you talked about the side gig and the all-in. Could that shift along the way as time passed on? So you initially start off as a side gig, and then after college, it turns into all-in?
That's the goal. That's right.
That's the goal. Okay.
Yeah, I'm the poster child for the side gig to all in. That's exactly right.
And also, isn't it, okay, it's not just like black and white, right? Sometimes it's just in betweens, like it's between side gig and all in.
It's very blurry. And
There's a spectrum for sure.
And Adrian is actually an example of that because it was kind of a side gig because he had two other
I had
major
multiple
responsibilities.
side gigs.
Yeah, exactly.
I was like playing honestly too many at the same time, trying to figure out what might hit.
All right, thank you so much.
Yeah, you bet. If anyone has a burning question, we have another minute, but we want to be
Yeah, we'll be here too if anybody
Yeah.
wants to come down and say hello.
It's Michigan time. We got to end
That's
right
right.
on time.
Yeah.
So, well,
Hey,
thank you so much for
thanks,
having
guys.
us. It was
See
a lot
ya.
of fun.